Hello, everybody. Welcome to Moment of Clarity. Let's talk about the post office, right? You saw it on all your corporate airwaves. Trump and his goons are trying to kill the post office. And believe it or not, I know this is going to shock you. I know it's going to floor you. I know it's going to blow a hole straight through your underpants. But you're not getting the real truth from your corporate media. What? No. Say it ain't so. A baby screams, a plate crashes. Now, to begin with, yes, Trump and his goons of festering pile of rotting raccoon carcasses. That whole group, yes, they are trying to kill the post office. They would love to kill the post office. They would be high-fiving and fucking sniffing each other's butts if they killed the post office. They would be goddamn thrilled, okay? That is absolutely true. However, what you're not getting from your corporate airwaves is the, hi Anna, hi Peter, is the full story, okay? The full story as to what's going on with the post office. Now, before I get into that, and believe me, it involves the Democrats, okay? If you were worried, oh no, this is only the Republicans doing wrong. Oh no, we got some Democrat shit coming up here in a moment. But let's begin with why Trump has to kill the post office. He knows he has to kill the post office, or at least slow them down, and they've already taken a bunch of machines off the, mail sorting machines offline in order to hurt the income of mail, the ability to process it. But, Trump's processing abilities are not very high, so he doesn't want anyone else's to be. But no, the real reason is because Trump knows he can't win, right? Right now, he can't win. The numbers, and probably anybody in the presidency during an economic collapse and a pandemic and the environment collapsing down around us, all of them would be having a tough time winning that presidential election. What makes Trump different is he's decided, well, what I can do is I can stop everybody from voting by killing the post office and telling everybody that mail-in voting doesn't work. And by the way, side note, mail-in voting does have a lot of problems. They tend to purge about 20% of all mail-in voting, and that's before the pandemic. But that's not really the point. The point is he wants to stop as many people from voting. The Democrats do this too in the primaries, right? They try and stop as many people as possible from voting because traditionally speaking, the people that are just the old, reliable voters who always live in the same place, don't have any residency issues, those are the people that vote for the establishment Democrats. So Democrats do in the primary. In the general election, Republicans try and stop as many people as possible from voting. And they do it a lot of different ways. I'm not going to get into those right now. We're going to get into the history of what's going on with the post office. So he's trying to kill the post office, trying to make it as hard to process this influx of mail. But it turns out this is nothing new, right? This is nothing new for what they've been trying to do to the post office. And this is from an article. At popularresistance.org. Margaret Flowers, Kevin Zeese, they do great work over there, so you can find this at popularresistance.org. And they start off by talking about the history of the post office, and Ellen Brown, another great writer, they talk about what she said. Ellen Brown describes the long history of the plan to dismantle and privatize the U.S. Postal Service going back to 1910. They've been trying to kill the post office since 1910. In 1910, they passed the Postal Savings Bank Act, and that was passed to provide a safer alternative for people after the banking crash of 1907. Okay, I kind of misspoke. 1910 was when they actually made it better. They actually added the Banking Act to the post office. And the big banks hated it because they'd have to compete with public banking, with a postal bank. And right now, there's very few public banks left in America, but there is an ongoing fight for them. When you put money into a corporate bank, into the regular big banks, what do they use that for? Well, they loan it out to the worst supervillains in the world. All right, fucking James Bond villain style people. They give it to weapons contractors who kill children for sport. That's where that money goes. That's who it gets loaned out to if you put it in the big banks. Now, if you put it in a public bank built around a community, meant for the community, then that money gets loaned out to things in the community to help the community. Not to international weapons dealers, etc. Anyway, tangent. You might see a few of those from me here and there. But so 1910, they passed the Postal Savings Bank Act. The big banks were upset, and in 1966, they succeeded in dismantling the postal banks. The big banks pressured Congress into creating a series of laws that dismantled them. So then the continuation of this goes on for a long time, where they are slowly eating away at the post office, slowly trying to destroy it so they can privatize it, so they can make a lot of money from it. To quote Popular Resistance, profiteers searching for more public entities to loot, as they have done with water, education, healthcare, and more, have long viewed the post office as a fertile field for making money if they could just weaken it enough to collapse it. A serious step in this direction was taken in 2006 with the so-called Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act, or PIA. Makes sense. It should be named P. But PIA was, so that's under President Bush, right? And you're like, oh, well, again, the Republicans trying to kill the post office. Fucking goddamn George W. Bush wants to kill the post office. But PIA was sponsored by 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats. And it passed in the House with the full support of the Democrats, including Bernie Sanders. Most of the Republicans supported it as well. Only 20 of them voted against it. So in the House, passing this fucking bill, and I'll describe why it's fucking in a moment, passing this fucking bill was every Democrat and almost every single Republican. It then goes on to the Senate, where it's passed with unanimous consent, which is where they go, everyone in favor? Ah, okay, it passes. Basically, the senators decided to do that because they don't want to be on record as voting to kill the post office. Apparently, the House didn't have such a problem. But what did PIA do? What did the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act do? It required the post office to pre-fund all of its retirement funds, including health benefits, for the next 75 years. 75 years for people that hadn't been born yet. Little babies popping out the womb. Your retirement is already funded at the post office. If you join the post office for the next 75 years, the moment the kid comes out, like 75 years in advance, no business in this country is required to do that. And in fact, 2/3 of Fortune 1000 businesses don't pre-fund retirement at all. So this is not free market, right? For those pushing the free market bullshit. This is just straight up government trying to create something that would make it impossible for the Postal Service to continue. So this costs the USPS $5.5 billion each year to pre-fund their retirement programs for 75 years in advance. So it succeeds, right? It immediately puts the Postal Service completely in the red, immediately makes it, is that the right one? The red or the black? Yeah, the red. Puts them in the red, and I can't, I'm not that good with financial issues to begin with. Then you add colors. Come on now. So it put them in the mauve. They were deep in the mauve. They were deep in the, it's kind of like an off-white eggshell. They were deep in the coral pink. Isn't coral the color? Anyway, one of the first impacts of PIA, once it was passed, was that 65,000 postal workers lost their jobs in the following couple years. 65,000. The USPS is one of the largest employers of African Americans in the U.S. So this also has a racist aspect to it. And this was voted for by every Democrat. Every fucking one of them. And almost all of the Republicans. Because guess what? They are one party. They are the business party. They are the party of extracting wealth out of this country and fucking everyone else over. That is they hold hands and they high five and they circle jerk. All right, I don't know how they did that I don't know how they had that many hands available, but they're high fiving and circle jerking at the same time. They are one party. And so, yes, now in 2020, the Democrats run around and say, how dare they try and fuck up the Postal Service? How dare the goddamn Republicans try and fuck up our Postal Service? And I agree with that statement. But the Democrats were equally responsible for gutting the Postal Service to this level. And this is what you see in late stage capitalism, in a waning empire. As our empire continues to collapse, you see the final gutting of what remains of the common good, of those things there to benefit all. Things like a postal service, things like public schools, things like being able to turn on a tap of water and have a sip and not go, wow, that tastes a lot like mercury and lead. You know, why is my glass of water crunchy? Can you tell me that? All of those things are slowly gutted, right? I mean, when was the last time you saw a public pool? All right? There aren't any public pools anymore. It's just where people go to do meth. They're empty now, and there's public libraries are having a difficult time. I mean, all the remaining things are gutted. Our bridges, we have 60,000 structurally deficient bridges in this country because we can't even get our Congress and our state representatives to fund bridges. Like, how common sense is that? And it's because the government has been captured. It's been captured by the business interests. It's been captured by the corporate state. I mean, it is the corporate state. It's been captured by corporations. So they see a lot of money to be made in the post office. Well, if we just get rid of this thing that was meant for everyone to have an easy time sending mail around the country. And by the way, we could, we should be doing that with a lot of other things, right? We should have municipal broadband, for example. And some areas do, but very few, because that is also stopped by corporations, by big tech. So anyway, the point is that as you turn on your mainstream media and they rant and rave about the Republicans killing the post office, you can agree with them. They're not lying about that. But what they're not telling you is that this was a dual effort by Democrats and Republicans to slowly, over the span of maybe 5, 10, 15 years, destroy the Postal Service and gut it and privatize it and make a fuckload of money from it. That's what it is. And so, it's funny because they're doing to us what they've done to countries around the world, right? We try and destabilize them, we try and collapse them, and then we can extract what we need from them. We're seeing it right now in Bolivia, trying to get the lithium there. We're seeing it in various countries around the world. Create a coup, whatever, what have you, collapse that country, steal their resources, Afghanistan, right? Well, they're doing it in America too. They just don't need a coup. The coup was just buying elections so that we now have one corporate party that just completely agrees on the gutting of our society, on the gutting of our systems in order to enrich themselves at a time when we need the post office more than ever. It's how a lot of people get their medications. If we had public banking attached to it, then that would be a major step. If we, it's just incredibly important, and it impacts poor people more than anything else. If you were to say, hey, we got rid of the post office, or we privatized it, now you want to send a letter across the country, it'll cost you $20 instead of 50 cents or whatever the fuck the number is. Who gets screwed the most there? Well, rich people are like, I don't give a shit. All right, here's $20. Send the letter. Poor people can't even send a letter, right? That's $20 out of their food budget. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this moment of clarity. If you liked this, check out my podcast. I have 2 of them now. One's called Common Sense. Well, I technically have 3 of them. One's called Common Censored. The other is, thank you, Watson. The other is the Government Secrets. Did I say that one? No, Government Secrets with Graham Elwood, and Common Censored with Eleanor Goldfield. And by the way, Ellen, for those of you who are regular watching the live streams, Eleanor will be back on the Friday ones in not too long. When we do the live chat and we answer all your questions. This is a different style of Moment of Clarity. I'm trying the live stream Moment of Clarity a little more often, so I hope you tune in more often to these, and please share them around as I continue to fight nonstop suppression in every way you can fucking imagine. But, and I was going to say, someone's saying, what if we banded together? And I actually was going to talk also about the steps you can take to stop this. And the biggest one is just fucking fight back, stand up, talk to people, organize. Unfortunately, that's still the biggest one. Talk about things other than just the goddamn presidential election, okay? I'm fine if you talk about the presidential election. Just don't talk only about the presidential election. Like, fucking go out there and work on things, and don't put all of your fucking hope in November, okay? There's shit is getting too bad to rest it all on getting one criminal into the White House versus another criminal into the White House. It should not be all you're talking about. So, and as I just said, both parties gutted our postal service and continue to. So it's about organizing, and there are some other great steps over at Popular Resistance. If you look up this article, you probably just Google or DuckDuckGo, Postal Service and Popular Resistance, and you'll find it there. But again, this speaks to what your mainstream media is not telling you. Why are they not telling you about this 2006 bill? And if they do mention it, they seem to fail to mention that the Democrats voted 100% for it and that it was co-sponsored by them. That seems to slip their mind. You know, it's funny. I don't know what happened. We were just talking and it slipped our minds. Yeah, right. This is systematic propaganda from your corporate airwaves to make sure you don't know the true story. All right. So, told you about the podcast. Check out my comedy special. That's at LeeCampAmerican.com. My book's at LeeCampBook.com. Please share this. Keep fighting.